You are listening to Wicked Psychotherapists, a podcast where two psychotherapists show you that taking care of and learning about mental health doesn't have to be wicked hot.
Hey everyone, this is Tanya.
Hi, this is Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapists.
Welcome, welcome. We are getting into a good one today. This is a favorite of ours. I know that we've talked about before. We are still continuing with the theme of talking about movies and kind of dissecting some of the mental health themes because we like to do it.
Mhm.
And we think that you like us doing it.
Yes.
So we are going to continue. And today we're going to be doing the classic Edward Scissorhands. So this is continuing with the Tim Burton theme. We love Tim Burton movies. Done a couple other ones with those, continuing with that. Let's just jump right into it and talk about some of the points that make this movie memorable, good. I love the weirdness of Tim Burton. No matter what, he's always going to have some weird factor in there. And I love that. I love the fact that there's a character in there that kind of stands out, that is humanized, but also has obvious differences.
Yeah.
And you know, the kind of struggles with that and what that looks like. What about you? What do you find that stands out for you?
Well, I rewatched the movie before we're doing this episode, and honestly, I had forgotten a lot of it. But I just love the kindness that the mom, shows Edward, like when she's trying to do her Avon else, and where most people would run and hide, where she's really concerned that he's afraid, and she's concerned like how do I let him know that it's safe, and I'm just bringing you home with me. And I just like that she's not afraid, that she's not conforming with everybody in her neighborhood and all the people, and she's bringing the strange person into her house and just being like, okay, we're all going to accept him. I liked that.
Yeah, that was really, really sweet. I think really nice. And it was kind of unexpected because the neighborhood that they come from is one of those 50s developments where every house is the same, maybe just a different color. All the husbands drive off to work at, 8 a.m. They all pull out of the driveway at the same time. They all come home at 5 p.m. Dinner's ready. The housewives are at home. There's kind of a rhythm to it. And then you see this big house that's very gothic and kind of very much out of place with that, where Edward was made, essentially, because he is a made person, being, I guess. So yeah, to see that Peg, the mom, Diane Weiss, she was able to just see the possibilities, the goodness, and include Edward, but also to go against that, knowing that that's likely the type of neighborhood she has socialized in for years, raised her family in, and knows the gossip that goes around and how people are with differences with other people on the outside. But she just saw the humanity in Edward. Yeah, that is a really nice part about it. I think there's a lot of relation to these characters. People can see Edward as I want to call him Scissorhands, but Edward as the outsider, because he just has an obvious, quote unquote, what they term it as deformity, which I think it's a big noticeable difference.
Yeah.
Right. And it's also a difference that kind of promotes distance too, because you can't give a handshake, right? You might cut or hurt somebody. If there is some sort of like hug or handshake or like intimacy of any kind or any type of display of friendship, there's a possibility of getting hurt. So he kind of has this built-in wall around him, sort of.
Well, it's almost like he had to figure out a different way to be intimate with his family that is taking care of him. So he can't hug them. He can't, shake their hand. So what can he do? He can help manicure their lawn. He can help with cutting the meat. He learns like, oh wait, I can cut hair. I can cut the neighbor's dogs, stuff. So he tries to show love or affection in other ways, since he can't, physically hug them or show affection in that way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's really trying to, because you see him outside, he's trying to contribute with the dad trimming the lawn, and people are kind of doing everything that a family does, and he's like, well, what can I do? And he just discovers this talent for making these lawn sculptures, or I don't know what they're called.
Is it topiary or something? Yeah.
Topiaries. Yeah, the like kind of sculptures out of bushes, which I don't know if you ever question this, but I was always like, and it does say this on, if you watch this on Amazon Prime, as a goof. But when I was younger watching this, I used to be like, but it's bigger than it originally was.
I was
How
thinking,
could that be possible?
it's so funny. It's so funny because I was thinking that too. I was like, wait a minute. Did they really have what was wrong with these people that they let their bushes get as big as a dinosaur? But I think it's just like with again, Tim Burton's really great imagination. It's just like they could become anything. They can become as big as Edward was just going crazy designing. But yeah, I don't think they were that large or tall before he started manicuring it or whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely kind of, as they said, it's a goof, but maybe it wasn't with Tim Burton. Maybe he just felt like this is just what Edward Scissorhands can create, because he just can. He's magical like that.
Yeah, it's pretty magnificent. It wouldn't have been as noticed, or it wouldn't have made him as special or anything like that if they weren't larger than life. If he just made little tiny, like knee-sized bushes, people would have been like, okay, that's nice, but is it really extraordinary? So
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, because it really is. Yeah, it would not have been as noticeable. But yeah, it really is. I really like that dinner scene when they first bring Edward home and he's like trying to eat and he can't really eat, which in the logical world, I'm like, how did he eat when he was up there? Does he need to eat, or is he just trying to kind of like do the ritual of eating, to like fit in? And then he's like picking up a pea and, with like stabbing it with the end of his scissor blade. And, they're all kind of watching, like, is he going to get it, in anticipation? And, he's really trying. And the mom, Peg, is just like, don't stare. And, oh, you're doing really great, when he gets the butter. And it's just really accepting of him. She really wants to incorporate him. And the family is, kind of, the son is kind of like, huh, that's different. But they're pretty accepting of him, like having him there.
And that scene I thought was pretty interesting too, because Peg has been really good about helping him, but not really stifling him or smothering him. So even when she was helping him get dressed and it's like a big mess, she's like, do you need help? Or even then with the dinner, she could have been like, okay, let me feed you. But they're all just watching, letting him fail, because then he could figure out, okay, what am I able to do at the dinner table?
Yeah, it's kind of like a healthy way of watching your child grow, like to be like, how do they learn these developmental, stages? How are they able to pick this up without being enabled, so that they need me forever to, I need them to be independent adults. And he was having to learn them from the start. And yeah, they were really good about that.
Right.
She was especially good about that. Yeah, because she could have like babied him and been like, oh no, let me do this. But she really was just, I think, very compassionate and really willing to kind of say, okay, you can do this. It doesn't matter if it may be a different process for you. You can still do it.
And even the dad, because the dad at first, I was thinking like, oh gosh, is he going to be really obnoxious or rude to Edward? Because he's like, oh, Ed. No, it's Edward. He prefers Edward. And then eventually the dad found a different way to connect with him. He's like, all right, so he's going to help me with the yard work. We're going to get a drink when he's upset. We're going to find ways to connect that maybe aren't as nurturing as Peg, but it's still a way of connection. And the son found a way. He's like, all right, so how can I be cool to my class and just have him involved in some way?
Bring him for show and tell.
Yeah.
That was a funny scene. Yeah, and with Kim, it kind of, she was very weary of him and kind of felt weird that she knew he kind of had a crush on her, or was like admiring her. But then there was just a certain point where, I think it's when he like has the ability to unlock the door with his scissors. She's like, oh, thanks. And I don't know, she just kind of starts to see him like, oh, maybe he is kind of this sweet thing. And, he likes me, and I can see his sweet side, his compassion, how he's very innocent. And, that was, I think, compared to her rowdy boyfriend,
Yeah.
her rowdy boyfriend who was the former nerd in the Breakfast Club. I don't know why that makes me laugh.
I mean, like, well, he was like a big nerd in what Weird Science, Breakfast Club. Yeah, 16 Candles. Like he did not really come into his own until probably this movie, where people are like,
Yeah.
wow, this guy's cool, but not realizing that he was just like always like the big nerd and before, like, he was just a skinny little nerd for a while. But
Yeah, he was very, like, in this movie, he was very rough and, kind of rebellious and kind of such a what do you call it? Like a foil, like opposite to Edward,
yeah,
who was so innocent and gentle despite him having scissors for hands, which is just a really, really telling. And I think she started to see that, Kim, and be able to be like, oh. And I cannot think of her boyfriend's name, Kim's boyfriend, but
Jim.
Jim. The way that Jim treated her, like, he was physically really rough with her at a lot of points, and like at the end especially, but even when they set Edward up to rob Jim's father's house, he just kind of like grabs her and is like, leave him, and is very, she's like, no, we got to go back, and he just kind of dismisses her. He just treats her badly. He's just kind of a jerk. He's a jerk. Not kind of, he is a jerk. But yeah, and I think that's kind of how she starts to relate to him, is she starts to see kind of the comparison of like, my boyfriend's kind of a jerk, and look how sweet he is. And he's actually not weird. He's just got a lot of differences.
Yeah.
I think it was really, some of the mental health themes I think are pretty obvious there, but just to kind of bring them up, the social isolation that we see with Edward, obviously from living up there alone, not really knowing what to do. His creator, kind of his father, inventor of him, died of a heart attack, and he was alone. So he didn't really have those social skills. He wasn't aware of like the rituals, but he did pick up on them pretty nicely with the gentle, kind support of Peg, Diane Wiest.
Well, it's interesting too, because his father, creator, was so kind to him and was like, all right, well, we're gonna read this stuff. Oh wait, this is boring. Let's go to poetry. Let's do this. We're gonna learn manners, and we're gonna learn this and that. He tried really hard, and then I think it was nice that the person who found him, or brought him or recognized him, also had a kind heart, because he probably was up there isolated, grieving, not really knowing what the next step is. Do I leave and interact with these other people, or do I just stay alone and depressed? I thought it was also telling too, like the mansion, the grounds are so beautiful and so well manicured, and the flowers and everything, it's so hopeful. And so something about him was like, I'm in this really dark mansion, castle, whatever it is, and alone, but I'm hopeful. I see hope. I want to create. And just that when she went there and she saw that, and she's like, this is so beautiful. This is, like most people would be like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to sell my Avon here. But she still is like, I'm going to continue, because she saw something. Well, maybe she saw that she was going to make a sale, but then when she saw him, she saw somebody hurting, and, that maybe there's a way to connect. And I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. When she kept going and being like, I'm Peg. I'm just as harmful as Cherry. I think, she's going to say cherry pie or whatever it is. And then she sees his Scissorhands and she's like, I'm sorry. But I was like, I would have long ago turned around. And because it just felt scary, like there's nobody here. And if I hear something, I don't know, it's probably like a wild animal or something that is scary. I wouldn't expect a little Edward Scissorhands creature to be there, but she had really good, I think, just openness and kindness to the world, and saw Edward for who he was, and really wanted to help him. But as she soon realized, the society or the community that she brought him into only accepted him for kind of the exotic parts of him, the other parts of him that were fun to them, that were like exhilarating to kind of their boring lives. But when he starts to react to and have emotions that are understandable to his context, they start to kind of other him and make him out to be evil and bad.
Well, if it didn't fit their narrative, because they were fine taking advantage of him. And it seemed like they knew they were taking advantage of him, because even the father said, well, what are they paying you? And what are they paying you for, these haircuts or trimming their dogs or doing the topiaries? And they weren't paying him anything. And so they were fine just taking advantage of him and using him as a thing. And then when he was really vulnerable or frail or things were happening, everyone abandoned him except, his host family, whatever. Like it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they abandoned the host family. They didn't want to show up for the
party,
Christmas party
right
at the end. And kind of, I think just showing really a lot of that feeling of, if you are different in a place, a group, sometimes if you're different, people will only accept you for the things that they want to accept you for. But they're not really accepting you.
Right.
And that was definitely a community where, yeah, you're right. Like it seemed like they were using him, the Joyce lady that
cheated on her husband or whatever. Or she was just trying to take advantage of him.
She was always she was very Randy, I guess, as we would say, from Mike Myers from like the 90s.
Yeah.
She was always trying to just, kind of be with anyone and everyone, and then kind of turns the story around and says Edward tried to assault her when really she was clearly the one that was trying to hit on him. And then it goes down the gossip chain, and that's just considered truth. Nothing is even asked or verified. And that's really telling, because we see that with a lot of people who are, bullied in school, right? Or people at work, and kind of ousted in that way, where just even one kind of situation, one rumor can really make you feel like you're outside of, this thing that this group that you had used for support and connection. And then you see, maybe some of these people really aren't your friend, or you're, really care about you, whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, it's the whole group thing.
tough lesson.
It's a lot of the group think that happens, where people, and that's like a lot of this movie is about conformity and nonconformity, and how scary it is to be out of, what everyone else is thinking and doing. And so a lot of these people, and this happens, like you said, like in school and workplace and social media, different place, family, where one person can be pitted against everybody else, but a lot of people aren't really slowing down and being like, do I have all the facts? What is happening? How is this person feeling that's now ostracized? So that often is not really, thought about, or, it's really unfortunate when you see that happening, or if it happens to you, or it happened to Edward like in the movie. And it was very obvious, the way the movie's happening, but a lot of times in real life, it's not as obvious, and it can be very subtle, and it's still very painful.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it kind of reminds me a lot of probably the adolescent period or the teenage period, of where Edward is kind of learning about emotions, and there's emotional complexity to different situations. And there's also being misunderstood, and he gets really dysregulated, to be clinical, but he kind of loses his crap, right? When he is realizing he's being, kind of used for things, and then being, kind of like shouted at to get out, and like, you don't belong.
Yeah.
He goes and cuts down some of the topiaries, and people are like, I'm going to call the police. And the church lady is very much like, or the saying that he's the devil, like being like, he's the devil, he's evil. And people are kind of sort of listening to her now. She's not looking so crazy as they thought she before. And they all kind of on that train, because, really what they don't look at is that this person has never had these types of interactions. He does not come from this type of community. He's trying to assimilate. And, it could be, I could see it kind of as a comparable to, someone who is a teenager trying to find out who they are.
Yeah.
Or maybe somebody who comes from a different country, like an immigrant, trying to kind of fit in, and people judging before, not really realizing where Edward came from, right? And how he has experienced life, and that he's having to take on these new situations. He doesn't know how to regulate his emotions. It doesn't mean he's an evil, bad person for getting upset and kind of acting out.
Yeah, and all of this is happening the first time for him. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
felt, so, if you remember, like in the beginning of the movie when he's coming home and he's like looking out the car and he's so excited, and she's like, "Okay, it's okay. Yeah, I understand you've never seen this before." But he's also never
Yeah.
experienced a whole town turning his back on him and bullying him and ostracizing him. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it does make sense that, he probably wanted to scream, but he did lash out. He's like slashing tires and doing other stuff, but it's the only thing he knows
Putting
right
up
now.
devil topiaries.
Yeah. Yeah, making the topiary of the devil with the red
Demon.
devil eyes to the I thought that was really funny, to the church
I
lady.
did too. I like that part, yeah. Yeah, and it's probably his first time experiencing these emotions too, like just not even the situation, but internally experiencing that and being confused, like, what is this? Why do I feel this way? He doesn't know how to handle it because we learn how to handle and regulate our emotions going through different phases and having that support. And I think Peg is she was very good about supporting him, but he kind of then goes on to have more complex situations where it's like, okay, I have a crush on Kim, right? And I feel used, and other people are
Mhm.
he's kind of going outside of the relationship of like the home he was brought into and Peg's home, and so he's kind of handling this maybe sort of on the fly on his own and
Right.
internally, and he doesn't, it's like a storm is brewing and he's like, I don't know what this is. This hurts, but he can't like name the emotions. It's
Mhm.
almost like an emotionally dysregulated kid, teenager person, who maybe hasn't learned to be able to manage in
Yeah.
that situation. And it's understandable in
Yeah,
his
not everybody
case.
has the tools. I mean, look how many teenagers and adults who haven't really been taught to any grounding techniques or how to slow down their breath, or it's not okay to just flip tables when you're mad. Like a lot of
Mhm.
people don't really know that or weren't really taught that or shown it. And it's, you know, it seems like he was able, he had to go for his long walk. Then he's like, I'm going back home, going back to their house. And that's where I felt safe for a little bit.
Yeah. What did you think about the ending where Edward had to Peg was saying, I think he has to go back, because he just didn't fit in there. And
Hmm.
I think maybe she was realizing he would never fit in there because he'd already been labeled, right?
Yeah.
He'd already been labeled as evil, and he's trying to, cut up people's property, damage people's property, cut up this, the boy's face, even though he had just saved him from being hit by a car. But they don't see it that way, and it's not the way the story is gonna be retold
Hmm.
in the future. But what do you think about that? What was
Well,
your feelings
I
at
mean, I
that
felt
point?
like I felt sad for her, and because it seemed in him, because it seemed like the two of them are the most. I mean, it's like they had such a bond, like a mother bond. Like he never had a mother. He never had that nurturing person. So it was kind of sad. I mean, of course they don't show, like, does that family still get to visit him, and do they still have a friendship? Or is he just back in his mansion alone for forever? So that part is really sad when you think about it. And it's sad that
It
they
does
all
it does say at the end she never visited him, she
yeah.
never saw him after that day.
But it
Kim, anyways.
yeah, but you don't know. But the mom, like Kim, I know they said, like, she was in love with him or whatever, but I mean, I don't think she really had that deep of a relationship as the mom did with him.
Yeah, maybe it was kind of like a loss of, possibility of having a family. I felt really bad for him because it
Yeah.
was like, here he is, taken out of his comfort zone, even though it's lonely, even though he's isolated, and he gets thrown into these situations where
Hmm.
he's put up on a pedestal and then kind of dropped, could be
Yeah.
considered very borderline, very bipolar, whatever,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he's the evil enemy
Hmm. Yeah.
and he's got to go
Yeah.
home. He won't fit in.
Yeah. That is an interesting view. Yeah. Because you have everything. It's like, yeah, it's like the manic thoughts or something, but they're true. Like the grandiose, everyone loves me. I'm on a talk show and everyone wants me to do everything for them. But now back to reality, alone, isolated. But that also might be comforting for him because at the end, going back to the end, he's choosing to make all these ice sculptures in the wintertime. And than gracing this area that probably never gets snow with snow every winter or every Christmas.
Yeah, kind of gifting them. Yeah. And I don't think he displays borderline person. I was saying more the community.
Yeah,
It kind of
yeah,
like the way they
yeah.
treated him, kind of the dynamic. And obviously this is just a movie, so it's,
Mhm.
that doesn't
Yeah.
even really make sense. But let's just say, yeah, and like or kind of like a narcissistic kind of, like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you up on a pedestal and then I'm gonna make you into the enemy
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I just thought there were some
Yeah.
dynamics there that were
Yeah,
kind of
it is. I mean, well,
interesting.
the whole
But
town is very, yeah, the town could exhibit something, and he's just
yeah.
unfortunately like the person that is like the scapegoat for everything, the good and
Right.
bad. And
Yeah. He's kind of the other that gets projected on, and that kind of just kept striking me when I thought about how they treated him, even though it seemed really nice,
Mhm.
but they were kind of like, oh, Joyce was kind of looking for a thrill, but was also like, oh, you're so different. You're so sexy. And all the women are coming up and, kind of like trying to just see what they can get from
Right.
him. And like, oh, this is so different. But then, the moment that he is human and wants
Mhm.
to kind of fit in a human way emotionally, he's banned and
Right.
he doesn't fit in at all.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was really striking for this. And that's really what it reminded me of when he was banned. Like, you can't be a part of this community. You're the other. You're
Mhm.
outside of this.
Yeah.
Um and he knew that, and Kim knew that. And yeah, I agree. I didn't really feel as much for Kim because I was like, okay, it seems like they have something, but they just kind of started to form that. Even though she's the one telling the story, it's supposed to be some great romance, but
Yeah. But she
I more felt it for Edward.
yeah, well, she only knew him for like a couple days, and she was kind of a snot most of the time. And
Mhm.
so I really didn't have, I think, again, I know we talk about like when you first see a movie. I think when I first saw it, decades ago, I probably was like, oh, true love, look at them, blah, blah, blah. But then watching it
Yeah.
again, I was like, but, like she contributed to the boyfriend being mean to him and other people taunting him and just really ruining his experience in that town.
Yeah, she was kind of weary of him. She'd never really experienced that like a different person either, and so she kind of was like, "Oh, why is he paying attention to me?" and kind of like, grossed
Yeah.
out by that, kind of like, "I don't want you as, my friend."
Hmm.
But then kind of suddenly sees him a little different, when she starts to see his sweetness, his
Hmm.
kindness, and things like that. And there was also the whole Johnny Depp, Winona Ryder, who played Kim and Edward factor. They were dating then,
Hmm.
and they were like a big, you know, hot couple or
Yeah.
whatever, the it couple.
Yeah. Gothic
And
couple.
so people were like, "Oh yeah, that's really sad for them," because they're imagining them like being together, kind of thing.
Oh no, they're
So
gonna have to be
there's,
separated in real life. Yeah, it's
yeah,
yeah, they were the it gothic couple at that time. Everyone thought they were
yeah.
so cool.
Oh man. I do love that pairing. And that's where Johnny Depp got the tattoo of like Winona Forever, and then when they broke up he turned it into Wino Forever cuz he likes his wine, he likes his drink. But yeah, so anyways, I know that's like totally off topic, but yeah, I just think there was a lot of sadness, right? But also maybe a little bit of relief for
Hmm.
for him and for the community because they didn't have to allow these exceptions of differences and they didn't really have
Right.
to change, but they also were probably really bored after he left because they're like, oh, the only thing we could talk about is that guy that lives up there, but he's like not really wreaking havoc anymore. So they probably would find someone else to other
Hmm.
and to make
Yeah.
the other,
Well, yeah.
which they probably just do
Well,
all
yeah. Well,
throughout
even
and
before,
find
like all
differences.
the women had like this, they would just call each other and gossip to each other before. So it's like, oh, what's happening on this, with this house? I'm looking out the windows because I'm so bored and nosy. So I'm sure they probably found someone else to gossip about or to.
Definitely stare out my window
Oh
sometimes.
no.
Look at my neighbors. I don't gossip with my neighbors though. I'm not like, I just kind of, but I do like if I see like a, police car or something, so I will kind of be like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I do. But I don't sit there and like, call up my neighbors, and I'm not close with any of my neighbors.
That's funny. Yeah,
But
we used to
I
have a
do.
neighbor when we were younger, and there, my mom used to. I think her name really was Rosie, but my mom used to always be like, "Oh, nosy Rosie." I could see her looking out her window because you would see the blinds and the window actually move. Like you would see her like nosy Rosie.
Yeah, like you knew she was peering out.
Mm-hmm. Let's give her a show. Yeah, let's give her something to look at.
Yeah, it always was. Yeah, I always kind of felt like there was growing up. There was always neighbors that were kind of on the nosy side. I understand why, but we were also nosy too. So
Yeah. I mean,
went both
I
ways.
looking at my family, I could see why. I mean, it probably gave an interesting show.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, it definitely. I don't feel like I can relate to that neighborhood
No,
style at
no.
all.
I mean,
Like
especially like everything's so perfect. It's like what you picture, like a perfect HOA suburbia.
like
Everyone.
manicured,
Yeah,
well manicured lawns.
that would be really. It seems like it would be very difficult to live in a situation like that. Just very hard to be to be a certain way and have your yard and these expectations and knowing that the neighbors and everyone might be watching or judging you. I think that'd be very hard for me.
Yeah, and that's interesting too. That's probably an outlet for them being so bored and having nothing to do. They're just kind of like they kind of have to make something of that, right? So they're like, "Oh, well, this is our life, right?" And
Mhm.
that actually is kind of its own difficulty in and of
Right.
itself, I think. I'm not really feeling much sympathy for them obviously in this regard in this movie, but I guess from that perspective, yeah, it is like you have to kind of make your life interesting if it's very boring and mundane and you don't maybe like work and have interactions with other people outside of your, community, your neighborhood.
Mhm.
And so maybe this is just, their way of dealing with it and kind of keeping it all the same because they know that they all have to kind of keep each other in check sort of
Mhm.
thing. And they also need to keep from being bored out of their
Yeah.
minds.
Well, and also
Yeah.
it's a way to have something in common with all these women. So all these women looking at them, you'd be like, why would they even be friends? What do they, what would they have to offer each other? But they have the gossip and, hey, look, we can all talk about this one thing or we have this in common. But in the real world, if they all worked or they socialized elsewhere, they probably wouldn't be friends except that they lived near each other in this very cookie cutter neighborhood.
Yeah, for sure. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. So there's so many, I mean, like social pressures, groupthink,
Mhm.
social anxiety, social isolation, trauma, emotional regulation. There's so many themes in
Mhm.
this that I think we, talked about and that are really interesting with Edward Scissorhands. So I have a question that's just popped in my head. Okay, let's do a maybe we should start doing this or just if we think of it, but
Okay.
kind of a fun question from the movie. So would you, if offered the chance,
Mhm.
okay, and I'll answer it too.
Okay.
Would you, if offered the chance, take a haircut from Edward Scissorhands?
Well,
This is so ridiculous, but I just
okay.
am curious.
So I guess I don't know because I would be a little afraid. I get if he was how he was at the end of the movie. No, I would not. I'd just be sure he.
Yeah, like all like chopping things off
Yeah,
and flattening tires.
I'd get my my neck slashed. But
I mean, like just if he were calm and you were just like, say he opened up a
I
salon
don't
or
know.
something, and people were going to see
I
him.
mean, all his haircuts, I guess it was the period too, but they all looked like remember John and Kate +8 or whatever it was? Like they all have like
Yes.
they all have like Kate's haircut. It's awful. They're all like the side mullet, whatever that is. So I think if I could ask Edward to give me a different haircut than the side mullet, then maybe. So I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no. A hard pass for me. What about you?
So I agree with you that my first instinct is to say no, because I meant when he's like regulated, and
Yeah.
if say he like modern day could open up like a salon, like a cool salon, and he had access to like maybe some of the trends or, kind of that type of stuff. I think my immediate response when seeing that mullet and then the like weird little like poodle hair somebody else
The
had.
thing that looked like a lawn. She had like a lawn.
Yes.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I was like, no, I wouldn't want those haircuts, but if he were exposed to other trends,
Yeah.
I would say yes. I
Yeah.
would think it would be interesting because I think it was interesting, but I don't like the particular ones he did for that community.
It's weird. I think it was supposed to be in the 80s, because you look at the big van with the fires on the back. I think that was like a total 1980s type of thing, but the neighborhood looked like it was 50s. It was such a weird.
Yeah, it was probably just like a Tim Burton universe.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of a mashup sort of thing. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. If he could.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And if Edward could just do a trim. Hey, can I just have a little off the bottom?
Yeah, but who knows what he thinks is a trim?
Yeah. Then all of a sudden I have a side mullet.
Yeah, I think I would try it, but I would just be like, no, this or this.
Yeah.
And maybe see. I don't know. I think I'd be curious to see what he does.
Well, that was another thing that was really sweet about the mom too, that with Peg, because after everyone abandoned him and no one's wanted any services from him or whatever, she's like, can you just cut my hair again? And even though she probably just had a haircut like a week before, she's just constantly trying. I think she feels like this is
like show his value.
Yeah, this is her love language to him, showing like, I really need you. You're the only one that can do this.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was like showing her love language. Yeah, and like the value that he offers and being like, hey, you still have value. I still see you kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And yeah, and I agree with you. The hairstyle was just, I think on Joyce, the first one, I was like, I remember watching this the first time and I was like, oh my God, he's going to come up with something so like beautiful. And I saw it and I was like, what is that? That's horrendous.
What is that?
Like, that is horrible.
What is that
like, I just remember like laughing at that with my sisters. We were like, that's so bad. They look like poodles.
Yeah.
Like,
It's very, but I guess there weren't very many choices in the late 80s. It's like, okay, mullet, side mullet, mohawk. Everyone has curly hair back then too. It's like everyone wanted to perm.
And also like who knows what his exposure to like hair was, right? Like who knows where these ideas were coming from.
That's true.
I know we're kind of applying like Tim Burton verse to like real life,
right.
But I don't know. But yeah, I think, and that's a fun question I think to pose to other people if they would try that out. Maybe they would have the same stipulations that we have, like only if he was, regulated and not at the end, or like not a side mullet thing, which I just think is absolutely horrendous. I never understood why that was a trend.
Yeah, and then it was a
like
trend.
the Kate plus 8
and then
lady.
Kate did it like further on. Like, it wasn't like it was like in the 80s. Like Kate plus 8.
Yeah, it was like in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it seemed like a lot of people like that side, whatever the heck it was. It was like, what the, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Kate.
And I'm sorry if anybody has that now. I apologize.
Yeah,
but I just,
sorry.
You can make fun of my hair. My hair is plain and I just trim it and keep it trimmed. That's it.
Yeah,
but
you could just tell me.
I can't stand that.
You can tell me I need to brush my hair. I don't.
Same. Yeah. Me too. I could certainly stand for a brushing or two. Just if you guys want to write about, write down if you would get a haircut or what kind of haircut you think he could do. I know it's kind of silly, but I just think it's fun to kind of imagine that. I love imaginative characters and seeing what it's like in reality. He'd probably
do like
great
fun, like in the 80s, like when like the what is that type of haircut that the fade, like with Kid and Play? Because he'd probably do fun, he'd probably be able to do really cool haircuts like that, like just
the like Table Mountain kind of thing where
I know you can't see it on a podcast what I was just doing with
you all know it with the Kid and Play. When you hear Kid and Play, you know that.
Like,
if you know them, you know that. If you don't, look them up and you'll know.
Yeah.
But so this is a fun one. This was really, really great. All these movies. I love how we can always find little fun elements and also discuss our opinions, but also throw in some mental health, just kind of what we would see, even though it's imaginary, which is kind of our like, hey, there's some mental health in there. Because you can just want to see it in most movies.
Yeah.
I think this is a classic for a lot of people. And Johnny Depp, I do love Johnny Depp even now. I hate to say it, but I really do.
Yeah,
I love
sometimes I
him.
go through a love-hate with him. Like sometimes I'm just like, ugh, stop talking. You're so annoying.
I know. Yeah, he could be. Yeah,
He's such an
but
annoying.
I still just love him.
He's an annoying human. But I really like him. Like sometimes I still remember him from 21 Jump Street. And that's the Johnny Depp I love. But
yeah.
it's like,
even though we both preferred Richard Grieco, right?
Yeah.
Weren't we?
No.
Weren't we of the Richard Grieco persuasion?
Yes, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, because I wasn't allowed to like Johnny Depp because my friend liked him.
Right. Yeah, you had to. Yeah, and you were kind of forced into it. You were like, okay, I guess I gotta.
I guess it's Richard Grieco. I like his eyebrows.
It's him.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know that, that's from one of our earlier episodes. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I remember that one, but I don't remember which one it was. We talked about it somehow.
It'd be funny if we did a 21 Jump Street episode.
Oh, that might be like. Do you mean the movie or the TV show? The show itself. Oh, that would be a good excuse. Okay, so my husband and I tried to go back and watch some of the older ones, and we couldn't. It was just so cheesy.
Yeah,
we couldn't really get into it, but it was kind of fun.
I imagine it's so cringy. I mean, just like if you
it is.
Yeah, because I tried watching 90210 one day. I was like, ugh, what am I doing? I can't do it. So
it's so true with those shows. Like it's like they're you love them, you do love them, but you just can't really rewatch them. But I mean, we could still, I'm sure, watch a few. That might be, we might have that somewhere down the road because there's definitely themes in there, and it's just a fun.
Yeah, I used to like Dom DeLuise's son. I can't remember his name, but he was in 21.
Oh yeah, I can picture his face.
I can't remember who he was. But anyway, that has nothing to do with this episode. So
but I totally, the thing is I totally see that as a connection. So I got you. I'm on the same train.
And this is how my mind works.
Yep. That's the air sign. That's the Gemini Aquarius.
Yeah.
That's both of us. We both have random, like we're just kind of out there.
Wait, now we're at.
I understand it.
Now we're talking about Dom DeLuise's son. That's like, yeah.
For some reason, that made sense to me. I was like, yeah. Like, I totally, I was like, that's the next thing to say. Yeah. That makes sense. I don't know why. It just fit. It fit. Okay, it was perfect. But yeah, so I think that is a perfect way to end this.
And in case anyone is really curious, Dom DeLuise's son is named Peter DeLuise. So I just Googled
Peter DeLuise. Yes, okay.
Because that is very important to know.
It is.
And
I'm sure somebody would have let us know, but it was important to us.
Yes,
but anyways, we hope you enjoyed that. That was very fun. But yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, 2025. Can't believe it. And we are going into our second year, right? And 2025.
Yeah, season 3.
Yeah, season 3. Oh my gosh. So happy anniversary to us. This is coming up fast.
Congratulations. Erin and Tanya.
Yes.
Good job.
Yay. Yeah. And thank you to all of you who have listened and provided comments and follow us and give us, suggestions and tell us things that you like that are going on or things that, maybe we can add in.
Yeah.
That's been really helpful.
Because there have been quite a few episodes thanks to our viewers who have sent in things either on Instagram or on our fan mail. So thank you.
Yeah.
We do appreciate it because sometimes we get stuff, there's only so many 80s things that we know. So we need help.
It is. It's always good to remind us. Yeah. Because we forget just being in other people's lives all week. And then we got to out and think of things. So that's very, very helpful. We love it. You guys are great. But yeah, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and don't forget, stay wicked.
And keep your mind well. All right. Have a good week. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, guys. Happy 2025.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.